What's up, everyone? Welcome into another game day update. The Memphis Grizzlies today will take on the Chicago Bulls in Chicago. So joining me from Chicago, how many times can you say Chicago in one sentence, is the Bulls play-by-play announcer, Adam Amin. How are you this morning?
Going on, Kelcey. Good to talk to you.
All right. Are you ready to dive into the last preseason game? We can get this out of the way and move on to the regular season finally.
I'm ready for it. I think there's a little bit of buzz in Chicago for the first time in a while, which is cool. Just with the new additions, and I'm sure a lot of people in Memphis are kind of wondering what their roster is going to look like come regular season 2, and what the lineup and what the chemistry is going to be like. That's the case here with all Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan and Alex Caruso, and how are they going to mesh and how are they going to fit, and what's the chemistry going to be like? It's looked good in 3 games, so I think there's a little bit more of a buzz than usual.
And I think that's the cool thing about preseason is, so you guys are 3-0 right now. You have those 2 new pieces being brought in. You also have Kelcey Wright out. You've had 2 guys that should come back, or expected to come back in this last game. So you're going to have a full-ish roster with these 2 new guys. What have you liked so far? Obviously, something's clicking.
Yeah, they run, I think, Kelsey. I think that's the big thing right now. The thing that this team lacked, and it wasn't a bad defense last year. Like the Grizzlies are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA last year. So I'm sure people in Chicago, especially late in the year when they saw Memphis a couple of times, are like, all right, this is what I think the Bulls should look like. A team that can get their hands on passes, they can get steals and then run. Because that's, I think, what Memphis looked like at its best during the near playoff run a couple of years ago, and then last year when they were running the floor, when Ja's getting elevated, when they're pushing the pace. And I think that's what Chicago is looking like a little bit more. And that's what's impressed me in the early part of the preseason. But so much in the 3rd game against Cleveland, but the first 2 games, it was run and gun, and it was Lonzo getting his hands on a pass, 2 passes quickly up ahead, and now you got an easy layup. Like, this is a team that needs to be more efficient as a club. I think they have the pieces to be more efficient, but the most efficient way to score is to do it off the defensive end. And finally, this team, for the first time in maybe I would say 3 or 4 years, maybe since the Jimmy Butler era, really has a team that can run from the defensive end of the floor, and they're really athletic. So it's fun that that Memphis and Chicago are seeing each other at night to close the preseason, because I think there's a lot of similarities this year.
Well, that's what I was going to say when I hear you talk about running and gunning, because pace-wise, the Grizzlies in this preseason are leading the way in fast break points. Ja Morant leads in fast break points and points in the paint right now. So it's safe to say that this game is going to be an absolute track meet, which makes me think we're also going to have some crazy highlight dunks.
That was my favorite. The Ja dunk, the alley-oop last year, and I can't remember who passed it, unfortunately. I'd have to go back and look, but against the Bulls, one of my favorite dunks I saw all of last year. Like, Ja's just an exciting player. I mean, we know that. That's what you guys appreciate about him in Memphis, obviously. But, what I think the Bulls were missing was a Ja-like player. I think Lonzo Ball and Ja Morant have some similarities. Ja definitely plays way higher above the rim, but I think their ability to run an offense, their vision, I think Ja manipulates a defense about as well as anybody. I think Luka's probably, the best at it right now in the NBA. Kyrie, when he plays, like, his ability to handle and manipulate defenses through his own ball handling is impressive. But I think Ja is one of those guys, like, who, with his eyes, with his ball handling ability, he's a good combo of those 2, Luka and Kyrie. I think, the best of both of those guys. I think Ja has some of those skills, and Lonzo Ball has some of that. And I think that's something that the Bulls have been missing, is they have a Zach LaVine. They have a Ja Morant type dunker. They have an elevated guy. They have Derrick Jones now, who's won a dunk contest. They have athletic guys in this team, and they should want to play like that. And I think that's what was most impressive about Memphis last year is, yeah, they had a lot of highlight reel stuff, but it came off a lot of really good things on the defensive end, and it came off of a lot of really good court vision from Ja. So I really think Memphis is an entertaining team. Again, I don't know what they're going to look like this year with all these new pieces, but I think that's what's fun about kind of getting a taste of it in the preseason.
All right, let me talk about those pieces quickly. On our end, if you're watching from home, Dylan Brooks is, of course, still out. Chris Dunn is still out. And I had mentioned really quickly that Kelcey Wright is going to be out for the Bulls.
Yep.
Tony Bradley is, I think he's like, he said probable. And then Patrick Williams is like confident that he's going to play tonight. But I want to go defense really quick, because we've talked about offense a little bit, how these 2 teams are going to be so fast up and down the court this whole game. But defensively, with Dylan Brooks being out for the Grizzlies, it's going to make a lot of, the other guys kind of reliant on the defensive end because Dylan is that defensive stopper that they're missing. This is also, Coach Jenkins said it's kind of like the dress rehearsal to the final or to the regular season because they have been resting a lot of guys. Again, this is our 6th preseason game. Obviously the Bulls only 4th. So in my mind, the defense, you know, when it comes to stopping guys like Lonzo and DeMar, it's going to come down to guys like Desmond Bane, D'Anthony Melton, who are still kind of like, we don't know who's going to make that starting lineup. For you guys, when you look at how quickly the Memphis plays on offense, same as the Bulls, who's going to be your big kind of guy on defense that we're going to want to watch out for?
Well, you mentioned some of the injuries. Like Patrick Williams is expecting to play. Like I think he's has high hopes that he'll end up playing tonight. And he was somebody that got a lot of early run against like some of the best players, frankly, in the league. Like they put him on LeBron, they put him on Luka Doncic, they put him on Giannis, they put him on like MVP caliber guys. They put him on Kawhi at one point when they played the Clippers early last year. So he got a real trial by fire. And I think that's what a lot of guys did too, right? Like you guys have a lot of bench depth last season, and most of those guys were plus defenders, you know, like you mentioned 3 of the names right there that you can throw on multiple high level scorers. I think for the Bulls, they finally added a little bit of defensive depth. So Patrick Williams, I don't know how much they'll push him because obviously they'd much rather have him for next Wednesday than tonight, but he'll get a chance to play some defense on some of the key wing scorers. I think you'll put Alex Caruso on a ball handler. I think Lonzo Ball will be on a ball handler. I think both of those guys, if Josh playing, you know, and even if he doesn't get a ton of run tonight, at some point when they meet in the regular season, like that's going to be a matchup that we get a chance to see. So that's what makes it fun. I think covering teams that have good defenders, because obviously it's a highlight driven league. It's 3-point driven league. It's an offense driven league, and that's all well and good. But I think we forget about matchups sometimes. And I think these are 2 teams that have athletic wings that can score and really good ball handlers and guys with length across the perimeter that make it difficult on good offenses. So I think that's something that's undervalued sometimes, not necessarily by coaches. I know coaches don't undervalue, but I feel like we do, you know, like we kind of forget about, hey man, like this is fun to watch, like good defensive teams rotate and call out stuff and move. And I would like to see a little bit more of that with Williams getting implemented, and then with Caruso and Ball in particular. I think Zach LaVine too I don't want to call him an underrated defender because that makes it seem like he's really elite and nobody talks about it. I think he's an improving defender. I think he showed that at the Olympics. I think he's got a guy that's continuously getting better. So maybe he gets a crack at some of the elite ball handlers and wing players and wing scorers in this league at some point.
Yeah, and I mean, preseason is the time to do it. It's fun to hear you talk about matchups because here's the one storyline that I think is kind of interesting going into tonight, because you got to play with stories in the preseason, or else when else are you going to do it? It is
2.5 hours on the air, man. We're trying to fill it out.
Exactly. So it's a team that's 3-0 with the Bulls, have not lost a preseason game, versus when the Grizzlies have had Steven Adams, John Morant, and Jaren Jackson Jr., they've pulled away and led by at least 39 points in each of those games. I'm just gonna drop the mic there.
Great nugget.
Take from it what you will.
I may use that at some point. This, I'll try to give full credit as much as I possibly can. But I mean, that was the other thing with Memphis too, like just injuries, right? Like Jackson didn't play. Like they didn't get who knows what could have happened if Jackson had a full run, and he didn't look like his normal self late in the year last year. And who knows what this team does against Utah. Maybe, I don't think they necessarily win the series, but maybe they extend it. Maybe they take it to 6 or 7 games last year.
Yeah, I think the John Jaren before this preseason had only played in 50 something games together over 2 seasons. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun for us. It's obviously going to be fun for the Bulls this year too, with the new additions. I'm a huge DeMar DeRozan fan, so I'm kind of jealous that you get to watch him all year. Adam, thank you so much for your time today. And the game tips off at 7 p.m. I can't believe we almost forgot to say that. So make sure you tune in.
Thanks, Kels. Appreciate you.